The North Carolina sun, a pale lemon yellow in the early morning, cast long, intrusive shadows across June Morrison's quiet kitchen. For a fleeting, fragile moment, as she settled down with the day's first steaming mug of coffee, she allowed herself a sliver of peace. It was a painstakingly constructed tranquility, a fortress built over 14 years of deafening, soul-crushing silence. Then the phone rang, and the fragile peace shattered like a pane of glass struck by a stone. The number was unfamiliar, a string of digits that sent an inexplicable, ice-cold dread coiling in the pit of her stomach. It was a sickeningly familiar feeling, a phantom limb of fear that had ached for a decade and a half. For 14 years, every unexpected call had been a ghost of a possibility, a Schrodinger's cat that could either resurrect her shattered hope or pulverize it into a fine gray dust. She let it ring twice, a superstitious, silent prayer to a god she no longer believed in, before her trembling hand reached out and answered. "Mrs. Morrison?" The voice on the other end was male, professional, and utterly devoid of any warmth. "This is Detective Harrison with the Forest County Police Department." Forest County. The name alone was a physical blow, a punch to the gut that stole her breath. They hadn't been back to the holiday home, not since, "I need you to come to the station immediately." The detective's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts, his tone leaving no room for questions or protest. "We've found something concerning your daughter's case." The ceramic mug, warm just moments before, slipped from her numb fingers. It exploded on the tile floor, the sharp crack a percussive echo of the day her world had ended. 14 years. It had been 14 years of agonizing, unending, screaming silence. What? Her own voice was a stranger to her ears, a faint, reedy whisper that barely disturbed the air. "What did you find?" Her knuckles were bone white as she gripped the phone, her only lifeline to a past that had just violently clawed its way into her present. "Ma'am, I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come to the station? It's urgent." Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of alarm at the sound of the crash. His eyes, etched with the same deep lines of sorrow that marked her own, met hers. In that single, silent look, a decade and a half of shared grief, of unspoken fears and desperate, whispered hopes passed between them. He didn't need to ask. He knew. The 3-hour drive to Forest County was a suffocating, silent journey through a landscape of roaring memories. June stared, unseeing, at the blur of passing pine trees, her mind dragged back against its will to that horrific day. It had been a perfect July afternoon, the kind of day that feels like a gift, impossibly golden and warm. The girls had been electric with excitement, their laughter like wind chimes. 4-year-old Emma, her chubby fingers wrapped tightly around her worn stuffed rabbit. Barnaby, whose button eyes had seen 1,000 adventures. And Sophie, a mature and serious 7-year-old, carefully packing her special stainless steel thermos, the one she'd painstakingly decorated with a constellation of shimmering, iridescent butterfly stickers. The memory of the picnic was a sun-drenched snapshot of a life that no longer existed, a life so vibrant it felt like a cruel joke. Their blankets spread in their usual spot, shaded by the towering ancient pines. Sophie, her green gingham dress swirling, as she patiently tried to teach a giggling Emma how to do a cartwheel. Emma's chubby legs flailing in every direction but up. The image was so vivid it was a physical ache, a phantom limb of a life stolen from them in the space of a heartbeat. "I'll start cleaning up," June had said to Marcus, her voice in the memory now sounding horrifyingly naive, a soundtrack to the most catastrophic mistake of her life. They had made a few trips back and forth to the car with the cooler and picnic supplies. It couldn't have been more than 10 minutes. 15 at the most. When they turned back for the blanket, the grass was empty. The laughter was gone. The silence that replaced it was a living, breathing monster that had haunted her every waking moment since. Their casual calls of, "Sophie, Emma, time to go," had quickly escalated into frantic, desperate screams that were swallowed by the indifferent, silent forest. The weeks that followed were a nightmarish blur of flashing police lights, grim-faced volunteers forming human chains through the woods, and the constant gnawing fear that chewed away at her soul until there was nothing left but a raw, gaping wound. It was as if the earth itself had opened up and swallowed their daughters whole. Detective Harrison was waiting for them in the station lobby, his posture rigid. He was younger than the original detective who had handled the case, a man whose weary, defeated eyes had become a mirror for their own despair. But this new detective's eyes held the same heavy combination of professional detachment and genuine human sympathy. He led them to a small, windowless conference room, the air thick with the smell of stale coffee and unspoken tragedy. On the table sat a sealed evidence box. June's legs felt like they might buckle as she sank into a chair, Marcus's hand a firm, grounding pressure on her shoulder. 3 days ago, Detective Harrison began, his voice low and steady, a deliberate calm in the storm of her emotions. A blogger named Mike Garrett was in the forest with his metal detector. He gestured to a laptop that was already open on the table. A video showed a beaming, bearded young man holding up his equipment for the camera. He runs a treasure hunting channel. He posts videos of his finds. He was searching near the old growth section when his detector went crazy near a large oak tree. The detective clicked the mouse and the video zoomed in on the detector's digital display. The red numbers blazed. 99. An extremely high reading. "He thought he'd found something valuable," Harrison continued, his voice dropping even lower. "Old coins, maybe a silver relic." The signal was so strong, so clear, he spent hours digging carefully, documenting the whole thing for his channel. Harrison paused, his gaze softening with a profound, almost unbearable sadness. He took a deep breath. What he found human remains. The room spun. The hum of the fluorescent lights above became a roar in June's ears. She heard a sound from far away, a ragged gasp for air, and realized it was her own. "And this," the detective said, his voice now impossibly gentle. With gloved hands, another officer, who had been standing silently in the corner, lifted a clear evidence bag from the box. Inside, caked with dirt and tarnished by 14 years in the unforgiving earth, was a small stainless steel thermos. Even through the grime, June could see the faint, ghostly outlines of butterfly stickers, their shimmer long gone, but their shape unmistakable. "No," June whispered, a wave of nausea so intense it threatened to pull her under. That's Sophie's thermos." The memory, sharp and excruciating, pierced through the fog of shock. Sophie, her little face scrunched up in concentration, telling Emma she couldn't drink from it because Emma would make it sticky. A sob tore from June's throat, a raw, ragged sound of 14 years of pent-up, suffocating grief finally breaking free. There were also fabric remnants, Detective Harrison continued softly, his words a steady, terrible drumbeat. A green gingham pattern. Sophie's favorite dress. The one that swirled so beautifully when she spun. The one she had insisted on wearing to the picnic. The dental records confirm it's Sophie. The hope June hadn't even realized she was still clinging to for Sophie, that fragile, secret hope that she was out there somewhere, was extinguished. Her bright, bossy, beautiful 7-year-old daughter had been lying in the cold, dark earth. As the holiday home came into view through the dense pine trees, June's breath caught in her throat. It was a perfect, painful time capsule, untouched by time, yet ravaged by it. Emma's crayon drawings were still pinned to the refrigerator with alphabet magnets. MAMA, DADA, and SOFE. A testament to a 4-year-old's world. June traced the waxy lines with a trembling finger, half expecting to feel the ghost of her daughter's small hand in hers. The ranger station had been transformed into a bustling command center, a hive of activity, buzzing with grim purpose. It was there, amidst the organized chaos of police vehicles and news vans, that June saw him. Park Ranger Tom Mitchell. His hair was grayer. His uniform stretched a little tighter across his middle, but his overly helpful, slightly intrusive manner was instantly, chillingly recognizable. He had been the last official to see her girls alive, a fact that had always sat like a stone in June's gut. During the initial search, he had been a constant, almost suffocating presence, his knowledge of their family routines unnervingly detailed. Now, watching him direct teams, that old unease returned, sharp and insistent as a splinter under the skin. She noticed he was steering teams away from the northern section of the forest, using the same flimsy excuses he'd used back then. Unstable ground, old mining shafts, she heard him say to a group of eager volunteers. But June knew that area. They had hiked there with the girls. There were no mining shafts. "Detective Harrison," June said, pulling the detective aside, her voice low and urgent. "That ranger, Mitchell, he's doing the same thing he did 14 years ago. He's keeping people away from the North Woods." Before the detective could respond, a shadow fell over them. It was Mitchell, his weathered face creased into a mask of deep concern. "June Morrison," he said, his voice carrying that same overly familiar tone she remembered with a shudder. "I am so deeply, deeply sorry about little Sophie. Not a day has passed that I haven't thought about your girls." He reached out as if to touch her arm, and June instinctively recoiled, a movement so sharp it surprised even her. Her younger brother Daniel arrived like a whirlwind of protective energy, his face a mask of grief and determination. At the volunteer briefing, he peppered Detective Harrison with technical questions about the metal detector, about frequencies and soil composition. Then, with a confidence that bordered on arrogance, he strode directly to the clipboard for the northern quadrant. "I'll take section N7, Daniel announced, his voice ringing with authority. Mitchell was on him in a second, his helpful demeanor slipping. "That's rough terrain, son. Not recommended for civilian searchers." "I'm an experienced hiker?" Daniel cut him off coolly, his gaze unwavering. "I can handle it." The tension between the two men was a palpable, crackling thing. Why was Mitchell so desperate to keep people away from that area? And why was Daniel, her practical, city-dwelling brother, so determined to go there? June drove into the small, sleepy town on a supply run, desperate for a moment away from the oppressive weight of memory in the holiday home. As she pulled into the shopping center, she saw it. Daniel's black SUV, parked in the far corner of the back lot, reversed into the spot as if positioned for a quick, unseen getaway. On a gut instinct she couldn't explain, she went into the pharmacy. She found him at the back counter, his basket overflowing with a bizarre assortment of goods. Bulk packages of feminine hygiene products, industrial-sized bottles of antiseptic, gauze, bandages, and cases upon cases of protein bars and bottled water. "That's quite a haul," the pharmacist commented with a friendly smile. "This your third big purchase this week, isn't it? You stocking a shelter or something?" Daniel's laugh was forced, a harsh, grating sound. "Hurricane season, you know. Like to be prepared." Hurricane season in the mountains in July? The lie was so blatant, so clumsy, it hung in the air between them like a foul odor. He spotted her then. His face went pale, a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. "June, what are you doing here?" "Getting supplies for the search teams," she said, her voice flat, her eyes drifting to the bags the pharmacist was now filling. "Oh, this?" He flushed a deep blotchy red. "I'm, donating to a women's shelter. They sent out a request for supplies." He practically threw his credit card at the pharmacist and fled, grabbing the bags and juggling them awkwardly. As he fumbled with the automatic hatch of his SUV, one of the bags dropped, its contents spilling onto the asphalt. In the brief moment the cargo area was illuminated by the harsh parking lot lights, June saw more cases of water, a thick coil of yellow rope, and several new, heavy-duty padlocks, still in their shiny packaging. That night, sleep was an impossibility. Her mind was a racetrack of racing. Horrifying thoughts. "Marcus," she whispered, shaking him awake in the pre-dawn darkness. "It's Daniel. Something's terribly wrong." She laid it all out for him, her voice a torrent of fear. The strange purchases at the pharmacy, his nervous, twitchy energy, his oddly specific questions to the police about evidence collection and chain of custody. "He asked today if they were using police dogs in the search," June pressed on, her voice cracking. "He said he was allergic." "Marcus, Daniel isn't allergic to dogs. He had that German shepherd, Zeus, for years." Morning brought another phone call from Detective Harrison, but this time it was for Marcus. "They need me at the station," Marcus said, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Something about new evidence, a lead connected to people from my old office. They said it's sensitive. They need me to come alone." As Marcus's car disappeared down the long gravel driveway, June knew she couldn't wait. The questions were eating her alive. She would go to Daniel's herself, just to talk. What harm could there be in talking to her own brother? Daniel's house sat on 5 acres of wooded property, isolated and unnervingly silent. He answered the door in his pajamas, his surprise quickly morphing into that now practiced look of brotherly concern. While he fussed with the kettle in the kitchen, her eyes landed on a pile of receipts scattered on his counter. Industrial padlocks, soundproofing foam panels, heavy-duty polytarp sheeting, industrial bleach, lye. Her blood ran cold. Through the kitchen window she saw it. The old storm bunker their father had built during the Cold War paranoia of the 1960s, its heavy steel door, once hidden by overgrown brush, now clearly visible. The vegetation around its entrance recently cleared. "Finding anything interesting?" June spun around. Daniel was standing right behind her, silent as a shadow. The mask of the concerned brother was gone. In its place was something cold, flat, and utterly terrifying. He had a large kitchen knife in his hand, held loosely, casually by his side. "You should have been watching them," he said, his voice a low, venomous hiss. "So focused on cleaning up, leaving them alone." It was fate. The perfect moment I'd been waiting for. "You took them," she breathed, the world tilting violently on its axis. "I saved them!" he exploded, spittle flying from his lips. "I saved them from this filthy world. Sophie was too difficult. Always crying for you, always fighting. But Emma was young enough to forget. Young enough to learn that Uncle Danny was her whole world." He grabbed her arm, his grip like iron, the point of the knife pressing into her ribs. "Come on. Since you're so curious about my purchases, let me show you what they were for." He dragged her across the yard to the bunker. He unlocked the heavy new padlock and shoved her down the concrete steps into the damp, foul-smelling darkness. As her eyes adjusted to the dim, battery-powered light, the full, unadulterated horror of the scene hit her like a physical blow. It was a makeshift prison cell. A chemical toilet in one corner, stacks of canned goods and water cases along one wall, a small, filthy bed with leather restraints bolted to the frame. And in the far corner, huddled on a pile of threadbare blankets, was a young woman. Her hair was tangled and matted, her cheeks hollow. But even after 14 years, even through the grime and the trauma, June knew that face. "Uncle Danny!" The young woman's voice was high, thin, and chillingly childlike. "Who is she? I don't like strangers." "Emma," June whispered, her knees giving out, the sound of her own daughter's name a shard of glass in her throat. The bunker door slammed shut above them. The padlock clicked into place. "Emma, sweetheart," June sobbed, crawling toward her across the cold concrete floor. "It's me. It's Mom." Emma flinched away, pressing herself against the damp wall. "No touching," she recited in a flat, programmed monotone. "Uncle Danny says no one else can touch me. I'm his special girl." The door creaked open again. Daniel descended the stairs, his face a mask of grim resolve. He carried a large blue poly tarp and a coil of rope. "She's too old now," he said, his voice eerily calm. The voice of a man performing a mundane task. "She aged out. It's time to go, Emma. We're going to take a trip to the forest." "No!" June screamed, scrambling to her feet and throwing herself between them. "I buried Sophie near the holiday home on purpose," he sneered, his face twisting with a horrible, self-righteous pride. "The perfect misdirection. Everyone assumed both girls died together. It bought me 14 more years with my Emma." He grabbed Emma's arm, but as he did, the hunting knife he had tucked into the back of his belt clattered to the concrete floor. June dove for it. A primal, maternal fury she didn't know she possessed surged through her. She snatched the knife and scrambled up the stairs, Daniel's enraged roar echoing behind her. She burst into the sunlit kitchen and grabbed the landline, her fingers flying over the keypad, clumsy but sure. 911, what's your emergency? This is June Morrison, 445 Woodside Drive. My daughter, Emma Morrison, she's here. He kidnapped her. My brother, Daniel Morrison. He kidnapped her 14 years ago. Send the police now. He's going to kill her. Daniel skidded into the doorway, his face collapsing in on itself, as he realized he was too late. For a moment, he stood frozen. Then, his survival instinct kicked in. He turned and fled. June dropped the phone and ran back to the bunker, back to the confused, terrified girl who was her daughter, her heart a wild drum against her ribs. She wrapped her arms around the thin, frail body. "You're safe now," she whispered over and over, a mantra against the madness, as the sound of approaching sirens grew louder, a chorus of hope in the terrifying silence. "You're safe."